Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Camino. I know too much of mud. I know that when a street doesn't have sidewalks and water rises to flood the tile floors of your home, learning mud is learning the language of survival. I know too much of mud. How Thea will snap at you with the dish rag if you drag it inside. How you need to raise the bed during hurricane season. How mud will dry and cling stubbornly to a shoe or a wall, to Viraleta the dog, and your exposed foot. I know there's mud that splatters as a motochocho drives past. Mud that suctions and slurps at the high heels of the working girls I once went to school with. Mud that softens, unravels into a road leading nowhere. And mud got a mind of its own, wants to unwrap your penny loafers, hung up on your uniform skirt, press kisses to your knees, and make you slip down to meet them. Don't let it stain you, Thea always says. But can't you see? This place we're from already has its print on me. I spend nights wiping clean the bottom of my feet, soiled rag over a bucket, undoing this mark of place. To be from this barrio is to be made of this earth and clay. Dirt packed, water backed, third world smacked, they say. The soil beneath the country's nails, they say. I love my home, but it might be a sinkhole, trying to feast quicksand, mouth pried open. I hunger for stable ground somewhere else. This morning I wake up at 5 a.m., wash my hands and face. There is a woman with cancer, a small boulder swelling in her stomach, and Tia Solana needs my help to tend her. Since I could toddle, I would tag after Thea, even when Mama was still alive. Thea and I are easy with each other. I do not chafe at her rules. She does not impose unnecessary ones. We are quiet in the mornings. She passes me a palm-sized piece of bread. I prepare the coffee kettle for her. By the time the Mateo's rooster crows, we are locking up the house, Thea's machete tucked into her bag. The sun streaks pink highlights across the sky. Viraleta waits outside our gate. He is technically the entire neighborhood's pet, a dog with no name, but the title of stray. Ever since he was a pup, he slept outside our door, and even if I don't think of him as solely mine, I know he thinks of me as his. I throw him the heel of bread from the loaf, and he runs alongside us to the woman with cancer, whose house door does not have a lock. Thea knocks anyways before walking in. I do not furrow my brow or pinch my lips at the stench of an unwashed body. Thea crooks her head at the woman. She says I have a softer touch than she does. I murmur, hello. The woman fusses in response. She is too far gone in her pain to speak. And since she lives alone, we have no one to ask how she's been doing. I rub a hand across her forehead. It's cool, which is a blessing. She settles down with a deep sigh the minute I touch her. I bring the bottle of water Thea passes me up to her lips. She sips with barely their motions. It is said she was once a most beautiful woman. I lift the blanket that Thea wrapped around her the last time we were here and press gentle fingers to her nightgown-covered abdomen. Her stomach is hard to my touch. Thea burns incense in all the corners of the small house. The woman does not stir. It is easy in a moment like this to want to speak over this woman, to tell Thea there is nothing more we can do, to say out loud the woman is lucky that her lungs still draw breath. But I learned young, you do not speak of the dying as if they were already dead. And you do not call bad spirits into the room. And you do not smudge a person's dignity by pretending they are not still alive and right in front of you and perhaps about to receive a miracle. You do not let your words stunt unknown possibilities. So I do not say that her dying seems inevitable. Instead, I brush her hair behind her ear and lay my hands on her belly, chanting prayers along Thea, and hope that when we leave here, Viraleta and not death is the only thing that follows. Thea is a single love of my life, the woman I want to be one day, all raised eyebrows and callous hands, a hairy upper lip stretched over a mouth that has seen death and illness and hurt, but never forgets how to smile or tell a dirty joke. Because of her, I too have known death and illness and life and healing, and I've watched Thea's every move until I could read the Morse code of sweat beads on her forehead. So when I say I want to be a doctor, I know exactly what that means. This curling is in my blood, and everyone here knows the most respected medical schools are in the United States. I want to take what I've learned from Thea's life dedicated to aid and build a life where I can help others. There have been many days where Papi's checks come late, and we have to count how many eggs we have left and how long the meat will stretch. I don't want Thea and me to always live this way. I will make it. I will make it. I will make it easier for us both. The day. I am beginning to learn that life-altering news is often like a premature birth, ill-timed, catching someone unaware, emotionally unprepared, and often where they shouldn't be. I am missing a math test, even though Papi will get in a taxi upon arriving. I skipped my last 2 periods so I could wait at the airport. I'll make up the exam tomorrow, I convince myself. Papi's homecoming for me is a national holiday, and I don't rightly care that he's going to be livid. He reminds me once a week he pays too much money for my fancy schooling for me to miss or fail classes, but he shouldn't fuss since I'm always on honor roll. I also know Papi will be secretly elated. He loves to be loved, and his favorite girl waiting at the airport with a sign and a smile. What a better homecoming. It's been 9 months since last he was here, but it is tradition he is on a flight the first weekend in June, and it feels like Thea and I have been cooking for days. Seasoning and stewing goat, stirring a big pot of sancocho, all of Papi's favorites on the dinner table tonight. This is what I think as I beg Don Mateo for a bola to the airport. He works in the town right near the airfields, so I know he's grumbling only because, like his rooster, he's ornery and routinized down to every loud grow. He even grumbles when I kiss his cheek, thanks, although I see him drive off with a smile. I wait in the terminal, tugging the hem of my uniform skirt, knowing Papi will be red-faced and sputtering at how short it is. I search the monitor, but his flight number's blank. A big crowd of people circle around a giant TV. Thea has a theory that when bad news is coming, the saints will try to warn you. Will raise the hairs on the back of your neck. Will slip icicles down your spine. Will tell you, brace, brace, brace yourself, muchacha. She says perhaps if you hold still enough, pray hard enough, the saints will change fate in your favor. Don Mateo's AC was broken, and the hot air left me sweaty, pulling on my shirt to ventilate my chest without warning a stillness. A cold chill soldered through a doorway in my body. A trembling began in my hands. My feet do not move. An airline employee and 2 security guards approached the crowd like gutter cats used to being kicked, and as soon as the employees utter the word accident, the linoleum opens, a gashing jaw, a bottomless belly. I am swallowed by this shark-tooth truth. Papi was not here in Sousa the day I was born. Instead, Mami held her sister Tia Solana's hand when she was dando a luz, when she was giving birth. I've always loved the phrase for birthing, dando a luz, giving to light. I was my mother's gift to the son of her life. She revolved around my father, the classic distant satellite that came close enough to eclipse her once a year. But that year, the one I was born, he was busy in New York City, wired us money and a name in his stead. Told Mama to call me Camino. 16 years ago, the day I was born was light-filled. Thea had told me so. It is the only birthday Papi ever missed. A bright July day, but it seems this year he'll miss it too, because the people at the airport are wailing, crying, hands cast up. It fell, they said, it fell. They say the plane fell right out the sky. It's always been safer to listen to Papi's affection than it is to bear his excuses. Easier to shine in his being here than bring up the shadow of his absence. Every year for my birthday, he asks me what I want. Since the year my mother died, I've always answered, to live with you in the States. I've heard him tell of New York so often you think I was born to the skyline. Sometimes it feels like I have memories of his billiards, Dios Colmando, Yankee Stadium, as if they are places I grew up at, and not just the tall tales he's been sharing since I was a chamaquita on his knee. In the fall, I start senior year at the international school. My plan has always been to apply to and attend Columbia University. I told Papi last year that his dream of pre-med at that prestigious university is the heart of the city that he calls home, and he laughed. He said I could be a doctor here. He said it'd be better for me to visit Columbia, the country, than for him to spend money on another fancy school. I did not laugh with him. He must have realized his laugh was like one of those paper shredders, making a sad confetti of my hopes. He did not apologize. It is a mistake, I know. A plane did not crash. My father's plane did not fall. And if a plane did fall, of course my father could not have been on it. He would have known that metal husk was ill-fated. The saints would have warned him. It would be like in the movies where the taxi makes a wrong turn, or mysteriously the alarm does not go off and Papi would be scrambling to get to the airport only to learn he had been saved. Saved. This is what I think the whole long walk home. For 4 miles I scanned the road and ignored catcalls. I know Don Mateo would come back to get me if I called, but I felt frozen from the inside out. The only things working are my feet moving forward and my mind outracing my feet. I created scenario after scenario. I damn everyone else on that flight, but save my father in my imagination. I ignore the news alerts coming through on my phone. I do not check social media. Once I get to my callejon, I smile at the neighbors and blow kisses at Viralata. It isn't true, you see. My father is not on the plane. I refuse. Papi boards the same flight every year. Thea and I are like the hands of a clock. We circle our purpose around his arrival. We prepare for his exaggerated stories of business people who harump over tomato juice and flight attendants who sneak winks at him. He never sleeps on flights. Instead, plays chess at his table. He got me one for my birthday last year, and before he boarded his flight this morning, we video chatted. They're saying it's too early to know about survivors. I'm so accustomed to his absence that this feels more like delay than death. By the time I get home, Thea has heard the news. She holds me tight and rocks me back and forth. I do not join her in mourning. I am stiff as a soiled rag that has been left in the sun. Thea says I'm in shock, and I think she's right. I feel just like I've been struck by lightning when a neighbor arrives. Thea lets me go. I sit on el balcón and rock myself in Papi's favorite chair. When Thea goes to bed, I go stand in front of the altar she's dedicated to our ancestors. It's an old chest, covered in white cloth, and sits behind our dining room table. It's one of the places where we pray and put our offerings. I sneak one of the cigars Thea has left there. I carefully cut the tip, strike a match, and for a moment consider kissing that small blue flame. I lift my mouth to the cigar, inhale, hold the smoke hard in my lungs until the pain squeezes sharp in my chest. And I cough and cough and cough, gasping for breath, tears springing to my eyes. I rock until the sun creaks over the tree line. I listen for the whine of a taxi motor, for Papi's loud bark of a laugh, his air-disrupting voice saying how damn happy he is to finally be home, knowing I'll never hear any of those sounds again. Yeah, Haida. When you learn life-altering news, you're often in the most basic of places. I am at lunch, sitting in the corner with Andrea, or Dre, although I'm the only person who calls her that. She's telling me about the climate change protest while I flip through a magazine. Dre is outlining where she'll be meeting the organizers and the demands they'll be making at City Hall, when Mrs. Santos' crackling voice pushes through the loudspeaker. Yahaira Rios. Yahaira Rios. Please report to the main office. I feel every eye in the cafeteria turn to me. I hand the magazine to Dre, reminding her not to dog-ear any of the pages since it belongs to the library. I grab a pass from the teacher on lunch duty, but Mr. Henry, the security guard, smiles when I flash it his way. I heard them call you, girl. Not like you would be cutting anyhow. No how. I hold back a sigh. On the chessboard, I used to be known for my risk-taking, but in real life, I'm predictable. I follow directions when they're given and rarely break the rules. I hang out every Saturday with Dre, watching Netflix or reading fashion blogs, or if she's in charge of our entertainment, watching gardening tools on YouTube, which I pretend to understand simply because anything she loves, I love to watch her watch. Teachers only falling. I replay the moment again and again, circle it like a plane in a holding pattern. How that morning on the 5th day of June, the worst thing I could imagine was being lectured for my progress report or getting nudged to return to chess club. I didn't know then the 3 hours before as I arrived at school. Before lunch or Dre or the long walk down the library hall, the door to my old life slammed shut. Page 24. When I walked into the office, Mommy is here, wearing chancletas, her hair in rollers, and that's the move that telegraphs the play. Mommy manages a nice spa uptown and says her polished appearance is an advertisement. She never leaves the house anything less than Miss Universe Perfect. The principal's assistant, Miss Santos, comes from around her desk, puts an arm around my shoulder. She looks like she's been weeping. I want to shake her arm off, want to shove her back to her desk. That arm is trying to tell me something I don't have the stomach to hear. I don't want her comfort. Don't want Mommy here or anything about what's to come. I take a breath the way I used to before I walked into a room where every single person wanted to see me lose. Ma? When she looks at me, I notice her eyes are red and puffy, her bottom lip quivering, and she presses the tips of her fingers there, as if to create a wall against the sob that threatens. She answers, Tu papa. The flight. Papi was on departs without incident on most days, I'm told. Leaves from JFK International Airport and lands in Puerto Rico Plata in exactly 3 hours and 36 minutes. Routine, I'm told, a routine flight with the same kind of plane that flies in daily and gets a mechanical check and had a veteran pilot and should have landed fine. Mommy says the panic hit most of the waiting families at the same time. Here in New York, with the Atlantic buffering between us, we knew much earlier. 30 minutes after the plane departed, it was reported that the tail had snapped. That, like some hunting creature, the jet plunged into the water, completely vertical, hungry for only God knows what prey, sank. I sign myself out of school, ignore Mr. Santos' condolences. Mommy is crying. We walk to my locker. I leave my books in the cafeteria. Mommy is still crying. I leave school without saying goodbye to Dre. Mommy can't stop crying. Mr. Henry waves. I wave back. Outside, the day is beautiful. Mommy cries. The sun is shining. The breeze a soft touch along my face. Mommy is still crying. It's almost as if the day has forgotten it's stolen my father. Or maybe it's rejoicing at its gain. Mommy is still crying, but my eyes, they remain dry. I learned via text I am one of 4 students at school who has been called to the office because of the flight. In the neighborhood, las vecinas are on their stoops in their batas and chancletas, everyone trying to learn what the TV may not know. Who was on the flight? Is it true everyone is dead? Was a terrorist a conspiracy de por allá, the government? When the women call out to Mommy, she does not turn her head their way. We walk from the school to our apartment as if we are the only ones who have been made ghost. The bodegueros and Danilo the tailor and the other stone owners stand outside their shops, making phone calls as viejitos wiring their hands in front of their bellies and shake their heads. Here in Morningside Heights, we are a mix of people, Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and Haitians, Black Americans and Riverside Drive white folk, and of course, the Colombian students, who disrupt everything, clueless to our joys and pains. But those of us from the island will all know someone who died on that flight. When we get to our building, Doña Gonzalez from the 5th floor calls out from her window, but Amami does not look up, does not look sideways, does not stop until we walk through our apartment door, and then, as if pierced, she deflates, sliding down to the floor. With her head in her hands, and I watch as the rollers slip free one by one, her body shakes, and she unravels. I do not slide down to join her. Instead, I put my arms underneath her, help her up to her feet, and into her bedroom. When the phone begins ringing, I answer and murmur to family. I take charge when no one else can. Last summer, when I learned my father's secrets, it was like bank-style gates descending on my tongue. No words could escape. Those words I learned must be protected at all cost, even from my family. Papi thought my silence was because of chess, because I was angry at his disapproval. He never once imagined that my silence was my disappointment in him, at what I'd found. But although I felt he'd become a stranger, I never stopped being my parents' steady daughter, who did her chores and bothered no one. Even now, that is not a habit I know how to break. I take down the trash, I microwave the leftovers, I wrap myself tight around the feelings I cannot share, an unopened present, a gift no one wants. Camino. One day after. My friend Caroline comes by before work, hugs me tightly, her swollen belly between us, but I quickly pull away. I'm afraid that I would break her. I'm afraid that I would break. She is quiet, holds my hand in hers, says God will see me through. Caroline has lost aunts and uncles and cousins and knows about mourning, but she still has both parents at home, and so I take her comfort without yelling that she does not understand. When her phone buzzes, she quickly releases my hand on a curse. I know without her telling me it's her manager at the resort wondering where she is. When she leaves, Tia sits in front of the TV and Don Mateo comes over, hat in his hands, and the phone rings, and even Viralata, usually mellow, howls at our gate. Everyone in the street knew Papi. The hustlers he gave money to keep an eye on me, the colmado owners and fruit cart guys who held our tab, the folks Tia has been a curandera to, healing their babies. The neighborhood women send pastelones and papayas, and men stop by to offer care in the form of labor and prayer. Papi was gone 3/4 of the year, but kept his ear pressed to the ground all 365 days, and so like grains of rice in boiling water, the crowd outside our little teal house expanded. People stand there in shorts and caps and thong sandals, the viejos held up by their bastones. They shuffle onto the balcony. They wrap their fingers around the barred fence. They watch and wait and watch and wait, an unrehearsed vigil, and they pray. And I try not to suffocate under all the eyes that seem to be expecting me to tear myself out of my skin. We have the nicest house in the barrio because Papi spent money to make it so. He wanted to move us, but Thea refused to leave the neighborhood she knows and serves. So instead, Papi got his fat iron box, running water, and a working bathroom we don't have to share. We have humming air conditioners, a large refrigerator, a small microwave, a generator para cuando se va la luz, when the light goes out, the latter setting us apart. When the daily power outages happen and the whole neighborhood goes dark, we are one of the few homes with our lights still on. But it feels like for the first time, our house is the one that has gone dim. Our house is squat with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen and comedor, a small patio in the backyard where we hold prayer circles and parties. Our floors are not dirty, but tiled recently and always mopped clean. We have a TV in the living room and Wi-Fi, and so many small luxuries Papi's U.S. sweat provides. But the thing about our home is that it's a 3-minute walk from the beach, which isn't always lucky when the water rises, but has saved my life on the many days when I need a reminder the world is bigger than the one I know. It is currently, and its currents are always moving. When I need a reminder, there is a life for me beyond the water, and that one day I will not be left behind. My bathing suit is a red-hot color, like the one from the old North American show Baywatch. Not a low cut, unfortunately. I sneak out of the house through the back and avoid the well-meaning people out front whose questions and condolences I want to swat. From the back road, it's a straight shot to the water's edge. Even though I snuck out from the back, Vidalata soon dogging my feet. I pass a couple of houses and 2 bar fronts where men play dominoes and sip lukewarm beer. This is the edge of our neighborhood. El Cerro sits outside one bar in his blue shorts, his eyes following me as I approach. He is a man somewhere older than me but younger than Papi, and I'm known from the moment I turned 13. Papi paid El Cerro a yearly fee to leave me alone, but the last few months I felt his eyes on my back. Little things like him now hanging outside my bus stop or strolling more often to the beach. Caroline even told me she saw him at the resort once and he asked about me. I keep my eyes on the road as I walk past. I hunch myself invisible, and then my favorite sight, the thicket of trees and small patch through them. Then the embankment of well-worn dirt that gives way to sun-beach sand. This nook is bookended by jagged cliffs on one side. That's where the chamaquitos dive, and on the other is the stone wall that separates the neighborhood from the resort where Caroline works. I avoid the cliff. I'm not here to leap and flip. I'm here because I need the current moving and steady and never the same twice. Rolling clear and blue right where I left it. My small oasis, Papi used to call it at Caminos Playa. The water babbled rushes my worst thoughts quiet, and I peel my denim shorts off, wade in, slicing through, as if by doing this I could cut to strip my breaking heart. Swimming might be the closest to flying a human being can get. There's something about your body displacing water in order to propel through the space that makes you feel God-touched. That makes me understand evolution, that we really must have crawled up from the sea. My life's passions, all about water breaking, new life-making, taking breath in a wrinkled flesh. Thea tells me I'm probably the daughter of a water saint. All I know is I am most sure of my place in the world. With the water combing my kinks, the cold biting into my skin, and my arms creating an arc over my head as I barrel through and battle to these elements. Papi learned to swim in the cut of the Caribbean Sea, used to jump off the cliffs in the waiting blue when I was younger. He gave me lessons, scoffing at the placidness of the nearby resort pool. Bueno, the best way to learn to swim is to jump into a body of water that wants to kill you. It used to be funny when he said that. Most days, he would watch from the sand as I tried to become a thing with fins. Some days, he'd strip off his shirt, show off his hairy chest and jiggly belly, and made me want to disown him on the spot. The other barrio kids watched as El Papi de Camino, the one who brought her cool shirts from the States, would slide off his old man sandals and hat, walk to a little peak, and execute a dive, entering the water so smoothly it would make Michael Phelps jealous. In those moments, Papi became a large creature, a lago creature, a human knife, a merman from some ocean mythology so smooth it would search his neck for gills. There was no current strong enough that could pull against his push. I am convinced Papi was made up of more water than most. The little kids would cheer and try to climb his back, so he would become a human surfboard too. And I would say, "Ese es mi papi. He is mine, all mine." Papi learned to swim in water that wanted to kill him. The ocean can't be so different, shouldn't be different. If any man could take a hard dive and come up breathing, it should be one who had practiced for just that his entire life. My arms are tired, my joints screaming. I want to swim until I become this water. The world fades when you are under, and the ocean murmurs, "Stay, stay, stay." I swim out and come back, my lungs on fire, my arms shaking from the strain. I could stop moving. I could just go. I turn my head to breathe. A sharp whistle cuts me off mid-stroke. Floating on my back, my eyes open to the darkening sky. I do not have to look to know the figure at the shore. "It's getting late, Camino. The beach is dangerous at night," El Cerro. In some ways, it seems like I always knew that Papi's absence would bring baggage. I tread upright in the water, trying to map out the fastest escape route to get by El Cerro, without having to go near him. Vidalata wags his tail at me. I wish he was more inclined to bare his teeth. Even from a distance, I see El Cerro's eyes dip down to where my nipples are cold as I tread, and I know the most dangerous thing on the beach has nothing to do with the dark. The most dangerous thing is standing right in front of me. El Cerro is not a man to be trusted, or a man to show fear. Without lowering my head, I calmly walk past him, snatch my shorts up, and suck my teeth in his direction. Vidalata must have read my mood. He comes over to rub against my leg, and I pat him once to let him know I'm all right. I want nothing to do with the crowing roosters or the viejos lighting candles and the watching the news and people crowding the patio and the prayer circles and the watchful eyes and the whisper about Papi being dead. But whatever it is El Cerro wants from me, I know it will be worse. The momentary discomfort at Tia's house, because El Cerro will attach conditions to his condolences. Papi didn't like that I've had boys flirting with me since I was 12. But he would have had to have been around to stop them or to keep me from flirting back. Plus, he was never as strict as he pretended. I don't mess with dudes from El Barrio who loves gossiping at the Domino's bar about the girls that they've slept with. I usually only flirt with the international boys from school, the ones with American accents, their blue passports and blue blood, both stamped with prestige and money. Those are the boys I switch my hips at, not because they're cute or interesting. They're often obnoxious and only want a taste of my gutter-slick tongue and brownness. They act as if they could elevate my life with the taste of their powder milk, tingle pomp. No, I date those boys because they are safe. They can't dance bachata or sing Juan Luis Guerra, can't recite Salome Oriana, or even name the forefathers. They wrap their flags around their shoulders like a safety blanket. And if our heart has topography, I know none of those boys know the coordinates to navigate and strive my rough terrain. In other words, these boys would be no distraction. Papi was a tiguerazo, a hustler, a no-nonsense street smart guy. He could sell water to a fire hydrant, sell a lit match to a burning gas station. Papi comes from here, Susa, Puerto Plata, República Dominicana, and he always said he never wanted me or my tia to polish boots or sell lottery tickets, to know hunger or the anger of going without. And so our poor isn't as poor as our neighbors, but it definitely isn't as rich as my classmates. It's the poor of an American sponsorship, the poor of relying on Western Union, and a busy father, and money that goes mostly to tuition. The poor of second-hand Nikes, leather repainted to look new. Papi was a hustler, a first cousin to sweat, a criado of hard work, a king who built an empire so I would have a throne to inherit. El Cerro is not the kind of hustler Papi was. El Cerro hustles bodies. Eagle-eyed young girls from the time they are 10 and gets them in his pocket with groceries and kind words. When those girls develop and show the buds of a blossom, he plucks them for his team. And although most people here won't admit they think like me, a woman should be able to sell whatever she wants to sell, but not if it's at the instance of a man, this man. Word on the street is El Cerro always gets a first taste of the girls who work for him, before he gussies them up and takes them by the resort beach in cut-off tanks and short shorts so the men from all over the world who come here for sun and sex can give them thumbs up or down in his waves. His women, not women yet, girls. So no, El Cerro's not the kind of hustler Papi was. He has no code. The sweat that makes his money is not his own. Even now, as I stare at the setting sun and walk away, he calls out, Camino, you know I'm here for you. Whatever you need, some extra money or a shoulder to cry on, just let me know. Your father's life, it's such a loss. It is a warm evening, but my skin feels kissed by cold. Whatever Papi was paying him each year, I think El Cerro is still expecting, even though I don't have a dime to my name. I know there are other ways he'll accept payment. I know he would love nothing more than to have me further in his debt. Page 48. I know El Cerro sees when he looks at me. This hair that curls down my back, lightened by the sun and always tangled. This thin body, better fed than most, curved softly in the places that elicit dog whistles and piropos. Swimming has kept this body honed like the oft-shapen machete. I am pointy ankles, knees and elbows, sharp cheekbones and jaws, jagged tongue, although the last is not the water's fault. My skin is the same color as Mommy's. If Papi's photos were shot in black and white, it would be cast in soft sepia, shades of golden brown. I am a girl who does not look like a woman. I am a girl who looks like a girl. I am a girl who is not full-fledged yet. And that's exactly what El Cerro counts on. A girl easy to convince into a trade she doesn't want. Easy to sell to the men who do. I used to go to school with El Cerro's little sister back when he wasn't El Cerro yet. He was just skinny Alejandro, Emily's brother. Back before the fever that swept in like with a hurricane, back before the deaths, the illness, back before Papi put me in private school, back before it all. Cerro's little sister had a big gap-toothed smile, a gap that wasn't just because we were both 7 and missing teeth. Cerro's little sister was my friend, the first to raise her hand in class, to volunteer to read out loud. She waved at everyone and everything. The pregnant gutter cats, the woman who sold ointments and socks, the drunkards on the corner singing off-key. The dengue fever came with the rain. Thea didn't have enough hands to try to heal them all, not even her own stubborn sister who said she was fine, not the little girl who was her niece's good friend. There were a lot of funerals in October. Rumor is, after Cerro's sister died, he was never the same. Before I learned to fear him, there was one memory that kept coming back, the one I cannot shake even as I shake when he approaches. Cerro had never appeared young to me, always the same age, the same face, but he would come to school to pick Emily up, and she would stop everything she was doing and run to him, arms spread wide. He would catch her, swinging her in circles, and I was jealous. Jealous I didn't have a constant male figure like Cerro in my life. Thea has kept the TV on since the accident. She hasn't blown out the 3 big candles under a picture of my father on the ancestral altar. This morning, divers began pulling up pieces of the plane. Papi loved the water. He could hold his breath longer than anyone. The news coverage has died down. They say any chance of survivors has to. It's been 72 hours, and I go to school on Monday, even though Thea tells me I should stay home. I want normal, but my teachers do not ask me for homework, do not ask me questions. In the afternoon, El Cerro sits on a crate near where my bus drops me off. Later, he is outside the bar I have to walk past to get to the beach. I try not to dread that he seems to appear on every corner, but it feels like El Cerro has sullied any sense of safety. And since most of his dealings happen at the resort next door, I know he won't be leaving me on the sand alone, like a too skinny cat who knows you hold scraps in one hand and smack in the other. I give him a wide berth for dinner. I warm the day-old stew that I still can't stomach. At this point, we have no reason to hope, but I can't say the words, because then it will become real. Dia and I both act like not talking about it will make it not true. I held her grind and dry herbs. We mend towels and watch TV quietly. Once or twice, when I walk into the living room, I hear her murmuring on the phone. She's always quick to hang up. I think she's been making funeral arrangements, but no, she can't tell me. Knows my shoulders are too narrow to bear the news just yet. Some people play chess. Yahaira. Some people play chess, but I played chess. Not like your abuelito at the park plays chess. No offense to anyone's grandfather. It's just my ranking's more official than your abuelito's. Last year, my FIDE ranking was higher than the year I was born, well over the 2000s. I scrubbed kids weekly at citywide competitions and was on a travel team for national tournaments until last year. I was not the best student at ACU Port Italian High School, but I was one of the best chess players in the entire city. And I ensure our team won titles. The school loved me for it, so did the neighborhood. I got us into the newspapers and on late-night TV for something other than drugs and poor test scores or gentrification. But last year things changed. And so did I. So did chess. And if the game taught me one thing, it's once you lift a pawn off the board, you have to move it forward. It cannot return where it was. Papi was a good chess player. Papi was a good chess teacher. He was not a good chess player. Evidenced by how terribly he hid things. You could always tell his next play. At least that's what I used to think. At least when Papi is in DR, we do not speak often. But I never had to reach him the way I did one day last summer. I felt like he might be the only person to help me make sense of the thing that happened. The thing I still find hard to talk about. I called his cell. He didn't answer. I sent him a text. No response. I tried his email, but one day later, my inbox was still empty. I realized Papi always traveled for negocios, for business, but I didn't have a single work number. I called Theo George to ask, but he said he didn't have a phone to call. Mommy rubbed my back, but said Papi would get to me when he could. On a day Mommy wasn't home, I went through a folder of Papi's papers. I thought one of his business forms might have a company number. My fingers, drawn like magnets, landed on a closed envelope. I know Mommy had never looked at it herself. I know this for a fact because if she had, she would have known what I know. What she cannot know, or nothing would have been like it was. It depends on whether Mommy or Papi is telling it their story. According to Papi, he saw Mommy at El Malenco in Puerto Plata, sitting near the water's edge, rocking high-waist jeans, guapa y alta como un modelo, straight hair and the nose of a Roman empress. According to Mommy, she saw Papi creeping closer, dark like the skin of a vanilla bean, a barrel chest in the hands of a mechanic, fuerte como un luchador, strong like a fighter. Pelo afro y esos dientes derechos. Afroed hair and straight teeth. According to Papi, Mommy looked fine, like a porcelain chess piece to be captured. According to Mommy, something about him called to her. Maybe his laugh scattering birds as it rang out, the way the crowd parted as he walked towards her, the way she stood and watched, unfazed and half smiling, forcing him to puff up his chest, to smooth his hair, to introduce himself to the woman he'd one day wife. Coffee and condensed milk would give you some kind of light brown, but I came out Papi's mirror. his bella negra, thick hair like his, thick lips like his, thick skin like his. When some of my cousins from mommy's side dissed me, la preta fea, the ugly dark skin, I never listened. Papi reminded in my ear, you are dark and always been beautiful. Like the night, like a star after a burst, like obstinate oxy jet, precious. But I know I'm beautiful, like all and none of those things. Far in the sky and deep in the earth, I am beautiful like a dark-skinned girl that is right here. I've always preferred playing black on the chessboard, always advancing, conquering my offering, other side. But although I got Papi's skin color and his facial features, my body is all mommy's. Her curves are a roadmap for my own dips. You cannot say I'm not both their child. The first time Dre touched me without her clothes on, she kept running her hand from my waist to hip. I wanted to write Mommy a thank you text for giving my body a spot that was made to nest Dre's hands. Sometimes I look down at my fingers, and they are long and thin. It's Mommy's imprint covered in my father's dark. But my laugh is an interrupter, all Papi. The cock of my head, all him. When it comes to personality, I'm neither one of them. When they hold boisterous family parties, I'd rather be reading in my room. Where Papi is always thinking of how to save another $1, I'm dreaming up a Sephora's wish list to request for my next birthday. Mommy stands in front of a stove for hours, and I would burn an untoasted sandwich. I am theirs. You can see them on me, but I'm also mine. Mostly. 3 days after. Because I don't know if Papi's an anchor at the bottom of the ocean, I ignore everyone's call. I press decline on my phone as classmates hit me up. I want to fold my ears in empty candy wrappers, small and small and smaller, until no words fit inside. I'm afraid if I close my eyes, I will have accepted him, will never open again. His will never open again. It is a losing battle. I fall asleep on the couch with the remote in my hand. I am awakened by a moan that sounds like something monstrous has clawed its way into my mother's body. Her ear cradles the house phone, but my eyes follow her to the TV. There have been no survivors found from Flight 1112. Dre has been my best friend since her family entered the apartment next door. She's been my girlfriend since sometime during 7th grade. We share a fire escape. In the summer we turned 12, we found ourselves out there at the same hour of the day. Dre would be reading a fantasy novel or pruning a half-dead tomato plant, and I'd be playing chess on my phone or looking at nail tutorials. She and I became tight as freshly laundered jeans, both of us absorbed in our own worlds, but comfortably sharing space. Dre comes from a Southern military family. She wasn't meant to be a hippie child, but she's granola to the core, a tree-hugging, squirrel-feeding, astrology-following vegan. Me? I was a fashion-loving, chess-playing negrita who quit at the top of my game. We both know what it's like to have our parents look at us like we are dressed in neon question marks. We also know exactly what it's like to look at each other and see all the answers of ourselves there. I'm a girl who will notice if your nostril hairs grow long or if your nails are cut too close to the quick. I'd as soon compliment you on how well you groom your edges as I would on how smoothly you steer a debate. Dre will turn any conversation into one about gardening. If I tell you a dirty joke, Dre will talk about plants that pollinate themselves. If you talk about hoeing around, you'd see Dre blink as her mind goes down a long-winded path of tilling dirt and sowing seeds. Here we are with our interests in chess and astrology and dirt and each other. Dre has been texting me since this morning. She must have seen the news. She didn't hear it from me because I turned off my phone. The thought of speaking makes me want to uncarve myself from my skin. But you can only ignore your girlfriend for so long, before she knocks on the window and sticks her head in. Is it true, Yaya? And I hear the tremble in her voice that threatens the wobble in my own. Dre loved Papi as if he were her own family. Would make Papi laugh with her precise school Spanish and North Carolina manner. I don't know, Dre. Anything is I stop myself midway. It feels like such a lie. Nothing and no one feels possible anymore. I cannot see her nodding, but I know that she is. I know that tears are streaming down her clay-brown cheeks. She tucks her long legs through the window and folds herself onto the ground, rests her head against my knee, and hugs my leg. I'm here, Yaya. I'm here. For hours we sit just like that. Dre is originally from Relay, and although she's lived in New York for a long time, every now and then her accent will switch up, especially when she's upset or hurting or trying to be strong. When New Yorkers are mad, our words take on an edge. We speed talk like relay racers struggling to pass a baton to the next snide phrase. But Dre, when she's upset, her words slow down. She becomes even more polite, and I know then she is Dr. Johnson's child through and through. Dr. Johnson takes on that same precise and calm manner. Her words an unrolling ribbon that you aren't sure you'll see the end of. When Dr. Johnson is upset, her hands fold in front of her stomach and her head cocks to the side as she lectures us on why we should have finished our homework sooner, or why a certain movie or social media clip wasn't actually as funny as we thought, if we put it in larger context. Mrs. Johnson, or should I say Senora Master Sergeant, Mr. Johnson, or should I say Senior Master Sergeant Johnson, is in the Air Force. I've only met him a handful of times. But Dre speaks to me slowly. And he didn't talk enough for me to evaluate how quick or slow or calm or angry the pacing of his speech was. But Dre speaks to me slow, like I've seen her whispering to a drooping plant, believing that her own breath can unfurl a dying leaf, can sing it back to heal, to help, can unwilt the stalk. Page 73. The summer before 7th grade, Dre grew tall. When extended completely, her legs stretched beyond the bars of the fire escape and hung over the edge like Jordan-clad pigeon perchers. Dre wants to study speech therapy in college, but I've always thought she should do agriculture. I've never seen anyone make as much grow in a small pot on a fire escape as I've seen Dre coax small seeds to bud and flower here. She has a railing planter where she grows okra on our side of the fire escape, which gets better lighting. She's planted tomatoes. One time she planted these little peppers that came out green and spicy. Although the landlord has sent notices that her fire escape nursery is a fire hazard, Dre just figured out another way to stack her plants or hang them on the railing or hide them in plain sight so she can blossom. Even when the pigeons pick at her seedlings or squirrels munch on fresh shoots, Dre just laughs and puts her black hand back in the soil, decides to grow us something good. Bobby never saw what Dre and I were to each other. At least he never mentioned it. Ma was more watchful, and it's not that Ma did not like that I liked Dre, it's that she understood. I wanted no big deal to be made. There's an artist my mother loved, Juan Gabriel, who was once asked in an interview if he was gay. His reply, "What understood need not to be said." I remember how Mommy's eyes fluttered to me, like a bee on a flower acknowledging the pollen is sweet. I have never had to tell Mommy I like girls. She knew, and she knew that Dre was special. Last year for Valentine's Day, before I left for school, Mommy handed me an envelope with a $20 bill inside. Stirring a pot of something fragrant, well, she said, para que le compres algo nice a Andreita. So you can buy something nice for Andreita. With her, I did not have to pretend my best friend was just a friend. The girl next door, being the girl for you, is the kind of trope my English teacher would have us write essays about in class. But that's how it happened for Dre and me. One day, we were best friends, and the next day, we were best friends, who stared at each other's mouths when we shared lip gloss. I don't think I understood the word wonder until the day our tongues touched and we both wanted to have them touch again. This girl felt about me how I felt about her. The day we first kissed, I walked into my parents' bedroom and offered thanks to the little porcelain saint Bubby kept on his armoire. Thank you, I whispered to everything that listened. The only thing about Dre that gets on my nerves is that Dre is sometimes too good. She has a scale for doing what's right that always balances out nice and evenly for her, which is why she was so disappointed that I didn't come out in the way she wanted me to. She said we shouldn't hide what we are to each other, and I told her I wasn't hiding. I just wasn't making a loudspeaker announcement. To my parents or to anyone, people who know me know. Dre's quirks come out in other ways too. Sometimes Dre wants me to have clear opinion on plastic straws or water rights or my feelings about Bobby, and she doesn't always see I need time to watch the board, to come to terms with the possibilities. I'm telling you about my skin and my home and mostly about Dre because it's easier than telling you. Bobby is dead. If I say those words, if I snap apart the air with them, whatever is binding me together will split too. The house phone has been ringing off the hook all day. Reports from American and Latin American channels, and newspapers and magazines and podcasts and websites, family members from the Bronx and Dominican Republic. The neighborhood association, which invites us to grief counseling special sessions that will be held at church. The phone rings, and Mommy's voice and raw and unprocessed sugar responds but does not answer. Where will go from here? Here's the thing that no one knows, and probably wouldn't believe if I told them. The night before Bobby got on the plane, I almost asked him not to go. It would have been the first full sentence I've spoken to him in almost a year. We haven't been close, not like we were, since he stopped playing chess. Since he tried to force me to go back. Since I saw the certificate in the sealed envelope. When I quit playing chess, he told me I broke his heart. I never told him he'd broken mine in the Dominican Republic. Before he met Mommy and came here and started his life for us. Bobby was an accountant, a man of numbers and money, but here he hustled his way into owning a billiards by Dickman Street. I don't believe in magic or premonitions, not like Bobby, who crossed himself every time he left the house, not like Mommy, who tries to interpret dreams, but on the night before Bobby left for DR, something yanked on my heart, and I wanted to ask him to stay, but I never said the words, and Bobby did something he hadn't done in over a year, came to my room to say goodnight, and tangled his hand in my hair while I was two-strand twisting my curls. I hate when he messes with my fresh wash, but I also missed him. My fingers caught in his, held. Before I moved away, removed myself from his reach. Me tengo que ir a los negocios, ya tú sabes. I have to go for business. You already know. He's always back right before my birthday in September. But every year around this time, Mommy's spine becomes rigid, her lips pull tight, a sneaker's lace biting into the tongue. As his departure nears, it seems like I can see the space between my parents stretch and grow, and she refuses to drive him to the airport despite how much I beg her so that I can be there when he leaves. Bobby stopped trying to joke her out of her ill humor years ago, and I wonder if she now regrets that his last few days here at home alive were spent in bed with her anger. I did not reply to him. Whenever he left, he said it was for business. I now knew he was lying. He fiddled with the light switch in my room. Negra bella te quiero. I know things haven't been normal between us, but I hope when I come back we can talk about it. I peeked at him from the mirror, while my fingers twirled and twirled my hair. I remember how I started to say something, then yanked the words before they could get loose. He shook his head as if changing his mind. While I'm gone, cuídate, negra. And I never said a word. Once, when I was still too young to chess competitions, I was in a tournament with older kids. I made it to one of the last rounds and had been playing well the whole time. I was convinced I was going to win the whole thing, but I missed an opponent's trap and was put in check. My hands shook, tears welled in my eyes. The clock kept ticking, but I wouldn't move. When I finally looked up, I could see Bobby watching through the glass of the double doors. He didn't blink. He didn't shake his head. He didn't do anything, but somehow I knew. I straightened my back, I wiped my eyes, and knocked down my king. The train ride home was silent, but before we got off at our stop, Bobby turned to my 9-year-old self and said, "Never, ever let them see you sweat, negra. Fight until you can't breathe, and if you have to forfeit, you forfeit smiling. Make them think you let them win. Day 4. On the news, blunt force, trauma and impact, medical examiner, unidentified, extreme force, not intact, unconfirmed, dental records, anthropological forensics, tattoos, fingerprints, teeth, personal items. I watch video footage of the plane spearing into the ocean. The waves rising, open arms, welcome. I wait for news that the passengers got their life jackets on, that their previously unreported life rafts, that their initial assessment was wrong, that the Coast Guard found someone breathing. The news only repeats the same words. No survivors found. The number of dead, unconfirmed. Where the plane went down is 120 feet deep. Divers have been jumping into the water, 15-minute intervals at a time, trying to pull up what might be left. I tell Mommy we need to go to Queens, the closest shore to where the plane fell. Dozens of people have been lighting candles by the water. The small hope inside me is illogical. I know this, but it urges me to go if I can just be as close as possible to the crash site. My presence might change the outcome. All Mommy does is drag herself to her room, where she denies my request with a sharp but quiet click. Papi sat me in front of a chessboard when I was 3 years old. He patiently explained all the pieces, but I still treated each one like a pawn. He loves to tell the story of how I would give up my king all willy-nilly, but would protect my knight because me gustan los caballitos. I like the little horses. In my defense, why would a 3-year-old pick a dry-ass looking king over a pony? But even when I was bored, I was also good at memorizing the patterns for openings and closings, for when to castle and when to capture. I was fascinated by the rhythm of the game. It was as naturally to my body. It came as naturally to my body as when Papi taught me how to dance. It's all just steps and patterns. By the time I was 4, I could beat Papi if he wasn't paying attention. On my 5th birthday, I defeated him in just 6 moves. After that, he would take me downtown on the C train to compete against the Washington Square Park hustlers, who played for money. They were straight sharks, and thought the little girl too cute to beat. But Papi would put a $20 bill down, and those dudes learned quick. Shorty had patient fingers, and played 3 moves ahead. Most important, I loved how much Papi loved to watch me win. I began competing in chess tournaments when I was in 2nd grade. From September to June, Papi never missed one of my matches, never complained about picking me up from late team meetings or the cost of additional coaching, even though I knew he must have cut funds from other places and people to afford both. Every couple of years, he built a new shelf with his own hands and put my trophies and plaques, pinned up my ribbons and awards. Negra bella, lo vas a ganar todo. Oh, my beautiful dark-skinned girl, you're going to win it all. And so I did. I won everything for him, until I couldn't. Until I didn't know why or how I should. Did I love chess? I did chess. But love? Like I love watching video tutorials? Love? Like I love when something I say catches Stray by surprise and her laugh is Mount Vesuvius, an eruption that unsettles and shakes me to my core. Love, like I love the scent of Mommy cooking mango and frying some salami, or how I love Papi's brother Theo George, holding my hand and saying I make him proud of myself, for myself, not for what I win. Like I love my father, that kind of love, consuming, huge, a love that takes the wheel, a love where I pretend to be something I wasn't. I did chess. I was obsessed with winning, but never love. I wanted to be a lady, sit up straight, cross my ankles, let men protect me. Papi wanted me to be a leader, to think quick and strike hard, to speak rarely, but when I did, to always be heard. Me? Playing chess taught me a queen is both, deadly and graceful, poised and ruthless, quiet and cunning. A queen offers her hand to be kissed and can form it into a fist, while smiling the whole damn time. But what happens when those principles only apply in a game? And in the real world, I'm not treated as a lady or a queen, as a defender or an opponent, but as a girl so many want to strike off the board. I've always wanted to go to the Dominican Republic. Every year my father left on his trip. Every year I asked if I could go along, but Papi always said no. I assumed it was because he was busy with work. I never thought Papi would be doing something he didn't want me to see. Mommy straight up told me since I was 5. She wouldn't let me set foot on that island if it was the last inhabitable place on earth. Although she still has cousins there, she hasn't been back once. I assume Mommy had bad memories of home. Clearly I made a lot of assumptions. I've always looked at my parents and seen exactly what they've shown me. I could not imagine them as real humans who lied and kept the truth from each other, from me. This year, I did not ask. I did not want to go. I did not want to sit across from my father, not to play chess, not to share a meal, not to ask if I could join him on a trip to the Caribbean, when I already knew way more than I should about the answer he would give me, about the answers he would not. I was raised so damn Dominican. Spanish my first language, but cheta a reminder of the power of my body. Plátano and salami for years before I ever tasted peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. If you asked me what I was and you meant in terms of culture, I'd say Dominican. No hesitation, no question about it. Can you be from a place you've never been? Can you find the island stamped all over me? But what would the island find if I was there? Can you claim a home that does not know you, much less claim you as its own? Camino. 5 days after. Papi had stubby fingers with the tip of one missing from where a machete slipped one July day when he was cutting me a mango in the backyard. His skin, where the nail used to be, in the same dark color as the mahogany chess pieces he played with. He tried to teach me the game, but I kept trying to include my Barbies in the battle. People barely noticed the missing fingertip until you shook, in my case, held his hand and could feel the shortened pointed finger. Not that he tried to hide it. Papi wore his fat gold rings and gestured with every word he said, and held a cigar to his mouth with the missing finger pointed upwards. It's just the rest of him took up a whole room, and it was hard to notice he was anything missing at all except when he was the one missing. And it was like days were deflated, like when his flight rose into the sky, he took all the air on earth with him. No hay sobrevivientes. No hay sobrevivientes. There are no survivors. It was a foolish hope. Thea hugs me to her, her white head wrap caressing my cheek. She's a small woman, and I tower over her. Neighbors pour into the house, like our grief is a bottomless thirst, and God has tipped to this pitcher of people to fill us up. The furniture is pushed back, and an hora santa begins. Rosary beads pass through fingers, and the rosario repeats and repeats. Dios te salve Maria, llena eres de gracia. 50 Ave Marias, 5 Padre Nuestros, 5 Glorias al Padre. Thea shoves her words out. I repeat them, rocking back and forth. Let the words wash over me. Later, Thea will hold a private prayer in her boveda out back. This is where she keeps her cowrine shells, where she will divine from the saints the next steps we should take. They know all about folks crossing the Atlantic and not surviving. We stack our faith up like spinal dust to hold upright. It gives us language to fill our mouths and hearts and ears, gives us deities to call on. They might answer and bring my father back. Papi knew my mother since they were children. Grew up right here in the neighborhood of Sousa. They were of this home, of each other. Grew up, grew apart. At least that's what Thea says when she remembers how her little sister made eyes at the boy across the way. They connected one day at El Malencon, where she was sitting near the water gossiping with friends from university. Mama saw him approaching and fluffed her hair. Papi straightened his collar, tucked his shirt in tighter. She laughed when her friends stuck out her hand, preened. Papi looked taken aback. She watched as her friends flaunted and flirted. Bobby gave Mommy a smile and secret wink. She watched Bobby extract his hand from his friend's. Bobby extended it to Mommy. Mama. She said he had his heart in it. Although the friend was clearly taken by him, Mama said he had eyes only for her. Said that at the meeting, she knew he'd be the greatest love of her life. The day Mama took on the fever, Tia was paying house calls to others who'd been struck by the dengue. It was just me and Mama at home. As I wiped her forehead and prayed. When Thea got home, she hopped on the phone. And even as a kid, I knew she was calling my father. For all her remedies, there are times when Thea knows a hospital is best. Mama did not want to go, said an ambulance was too expensive, although Don Mateo offered his car. Mama was worried about getting him sick. She said we were making a big fuss, even though she could barely speak. It didn't help that Papi's money came too late. Mama died 2 days later. It is not something I talk about, almost a decade after her passing. Thea had always lived with us, and she mothered me the best she could. Some folks would resent this. But even when Mama was alive, Thea was the other mother of my heart, the one who would sing to me when I fell and bumped my butt, Sana Sana Colita de Rana. When he visited Papi would tell me stories of Mama, how beautiful she was, brown-skinned and petite, how hard-working she was and made at the resort. He would tell me of their first date and the songs that reminded him most of her. My heart fills with memories, not my own, that paint her for me. I never once felt orphaned, not with Dia dogging my steps and smacking my hand and wiping my tears and telling me what Mother would say. Not even though Papi was far, because his presence filled the house, his weekly phone calls and video chats. He visits in the summer, making Christmas feel like a semi-annual event. I never felt like an orphan until today. 2 months to 17, 2 dead parents, and an aunt who looks worried, because we both know without my father, without his help, life as we've known it has ended. Carlene texts me, and I know she's still at work. The resort is the only place where she has access to Wi-Fi. She asks me how I'm doing, but I barely reply. I must have sounded unconvincing when I told her I was fine, because she arrives at my house after 9, her feet swollen and shuffling, the tired bagging under her eyes. She's still gorgeous. I tell her so. Ay, Camino, no me tires piropos. I know I look exhausted. This little one keeping me up all night playing volleyball on my belly. And the manager ran me ragged today. It is a good job that Papi helped her get when he found out half a year ago that she was pregnant and stopped going to school 2 towns over. I want to tell her she needs to slow down on hours, but everyone in her family has to work. It's how they eat. Her boyfriend Nelson contributes best he can, taking night classes and working 2 jobs even though he's only 19. Dia places some fried fish in front of Carlene, who expertly pulls the flesh, leaving the sharp-boned carcass completely clean. When she's done, she puts her feet up and stands behind her, weaving her hair into braids. So much has changed. A year ago, we would have sat just like this, whispering about boys and dreams and what we could be. Now both of us are moving moment to moment. Carlene came to offer comfort, but I ended up being the one who wraps a blanket around her when she dozes off, finishes doing her hair gently so she can sleep in the morning, parents her as best I can before she becomes one, and I remember I have none. 10 days after, I kept going to school as if nothing happened. There was one day where we had one moment of silence, and most of the kids know I have a father in the States who sends money. I'm an oddity at the school, never been any hija de mami papi, children of white-collared society types. The rich light-skinned Dominicans at the school come from families who own factories or are children of American diplomats. I didn't have a quinceañera at a country club. I'm American adjacent, with a father who made enough money to keep me in school uniform, but not enough to contribute to the annual fundraiser, or to send me on any of the international trips, or to give me a brand new car over Christmas break. Papi paid just enough for tuition every quarter, and sometimes I had to nag him when he forgot, and I'd gotten yet another payment notification letter. And now I sit silently in class. Do not raise my hand. I've been doing my assignments late at night after Thea falls asleep. I've been studying for final exams on the bus ride to school in the morning. I'm pretending Papi being dead does not change anything. That submitting all my work means my plans will continue. Even as I sit at a desk, I know I may not return in the fall. Dreams are like the pieces of fluff that get caught in your hair. They stand out for a moment, but eventually you wash them away, or long fingers reach in and pluck them out, and you appear as what everyone expects. I come from people who are no longer alive. My grandparents, my parents. I have Thea and I have father's brother who lives in New York, and they are the only two left to me who share my blood. There is no one to go live with. There is no one to provide help. There are my good grades and my aunt's aging hands. When I am called to the guidance counselor who wants to know if I'm doing okay, I ask if she knows what will happen if my family cannot pay tuition. She says there are scholarships I would have had to apply to a semester ago. She says funds have been allocated, but if worse came to worse, they would figure things out. And remitted me next spring semester. She says she wants me to succeed. It might just take time to figure things out. She says this with a small apologetic smile. It would delay my graduation. It would delay my ability to apply to college. And it would delay just how much time I live here. On her next day off, Carlene drags me out of the house. We do not turn to the beach, but instead walk over a mile to a small strip of stores where the tourists buy bathing suits and faceless dolls and seashell souvenirs. Although her breathing is heavy and her feet are swollen, she says she needs fresh air. But I know she means I need a change. Caroline would have been a great doctor or nurse. She has a sharp eye and was good at science. We gaze into window after window, pretending to be high-class ladies who would wear fancy cover-ups over our bathing suits and flip-flops that cost enough to cover our tabs at El Comando. I only let Caroline walk a bit more before I steer her to an ice cream shop. She won't ever complain about her aches, but I know the signs of fatigue. I only have a few pesos to my name, but I plan to use a handful to buy us each a scoop. The lady at the counter takes one look at Caroline and then another at me and waves my little coins away. She even adds extra sprinkles with her wink. Her gestures make me want to cry. The kindness of a stranger simply because she sees in us something worthy of this small gift. This everyday kindness is my home. Even if I could leave, how could I stomach it? The thought curdles sour as bad milk. Caroline and I walk back home arm in arm, our ice cream sticky fingers making me feel 6 years old again. This day feels like 100 other days we spent just like this, looking into windows and imagining a different life with each other by our sides. Papi put me in the international school after Mama's death, but Caroline and I remained friends outside of school. They would leave me at her house when she had errands. Caroline's mama would send her to stay with us when her parents took trips back to Haiti. And so we know the different kind of stories our silence can tell. Her silence tells me, Camino, I'm scared. This baby's coming. Camino, I hate my job where the manager pinches my butt and I have to smile when I feel like crying. My silence tells her, Caroline, I know. Where do we go? Where is safe harbor? Together, can we swim there? Can we carry our families on our back? Just for a moment, I grab my worries by the nape. My silence tells them, leave me alone. We will make it. We will be fine. I promise. Some way we'll survive. Yahaira. My school absences are not a secret. I've been skipping school on and off for 2 weeks, and when I go back, somehow we are taking finals. I let my teacher's words flood around me, but have no idea what is due, when, or to who. It feels like such a fake world. None of this can be real. How is it almost summer break? What does an essay on the Tempest matter? What does an analysis of the Hoover presidency matter? What does an exam in trigonometry matter? Which one of those things will explain mechanical failures? Which one of those things will ease how difficult it feels to breathe? I stare out the window into the warm mid-June day. Bobby left every year, from June until September. Maybe the only way to make it through these days is to pretend that in the fall he'll be coming back. I am not the only one skipping responsibilities. Ma has not been to work in 2 weeks, and last night the spa owner called the house phone and left a voicemail. Today I wake Ma up, brush her hair in a ponytail. I clean the chipped polish off her nails and swipe on a pretty pink color. I force her into a black dress that fits much looser than it used to. I hand her her purse and order her a lift. Go, Ma. You have to do something to take your mind off it all. No one does your job better than you. She gets in the car, but shakes her head sadly. My mother, always so organized and ready, the general of the small spa she manages, looks lost and tense. I watch the car until it turns the corner and hold back the impulse to chase after it, to call Ma and ask her to come back, to not leave, to never leave. I'm used to clocks, to using time to succeed, to slapping my palm hard across the timer as if we were running in smart mouth. You don't have to be God to control time, to learn speed. They say the plane went down too fast for life vest or safety plans. Too perpendicular to readjust in time for a rescue to be mounted by the time the Coast Guard reached a sinking tail. They've been underwater for hours. The impact alone would have killed them. No one ever emerged. The doors never opened. The air mask never dropped down. Without fail most days, I'm in school. I get sent to the guidance counselor, but I don't have anything to tell her. She asks me how I'm doing. Stupid fucking question. I want to tell her some days I wake up to find dents on the insides of my palm from where I fisted my hands while sleeping, my nails biting in the skin and leaving angry marks. On the day I wake up with smooth palms, I am angry at myself. There should be no breaks from this grief, not even in sleep. I don't tell her that. I don't tell her anything. I chew on the little green mints she offers and wait for the bell. Page 122. It's like the day that I don't go to school. I still go over to Dre's house. Even when she's not there, Dr. Johnson puts her arm around my shoulder and tells me to take my time. Her semester's ended a few weeks ago, and she won't teach a summer session for a few weeks more. I decide to organize the books in the living room library while I wait for Dre to come home. Clear Steps organize the books by genre, then alphabetize them on the dining room table. Since they moved here, Dr. Johnson has let me borrow lots of books, lets me borrow games, and Wi-Fi, and a cup of sugar if Mama was baking, and I wish I could borrow time or space for answers. I tell Dr. Johnson this, and she pats my hand. Just let yourself warn, sweetie. You can't run from what hurts you. Or like a dog smelling fear, that grief will just keep chasing with ever-sharp teeth. I go back to stacking books, orderly, logical, safe. Later that day, when Mama gets home, I search her face for signs of how she feels. She is as polite as when she left this morning, but her face is pale and her hands tremble. When she hands me her purse, she does not say how much it must have cost her to smile today. At 6 o'clock, Mommy and I go to a grief counseling session. It's the third time the neighborhood association invited us. There's a Spanish-speaking counselor and a priest. Mommy grips my hand, her pale cheeks paler. The room is full, and even before anyone speaks, there are several people silently weeping. Pain hums in the room like a TV on mute, and there is no knob to turn it off. The counselors ask us about loss. I don't know how to say in Spanish. I'm a graceful loser. Many times, many things. I've made mistakes that lost the match. Who were Mommy and I playing against? Did God win? Did Bobby lose? I know we did. How could the stakes have been so high? We are sitting in a circle. One man said both his parents were on the flight. They were returning to Santo Domingo to retire. A young woman with straight hair that hangs to her waist says her husband had just got back from fighting overseas. He was going to visit his sister, the place where he was born for the first time in 20 years. We heard about a little girl going to visit her grandmother, about a young couple flying to their honeymoon. The stories hang in the room like twinkle lights that I could touch. Over 80% of the people on the flight had connection to the island, returning. And when it's Mommy's turn to talk, in a soft voice she simply says, "My husband travels back every year. I feel as if I lose him again every morning I wake up." Anger swirls at my chest, gets tangled with the words I had meant to say. Mommy's pain seems hungry, and for the first time I wonder if now that Bobby's dead, will she learn what I knew? What I hadn't been able to talk about for over a year because I didn't want to hurt her, because I was afraid of the kind of change these secrets would rain on our lives. And if she doesn't find out, does that mean the only person in my family who knows Bobby's secret is me? When it's my turn to speak, I bite the inside of my cheek. The only thing I give the circle is a tight smile and shrug. On silent accord, Mommy and I agree we will not go back. The motions at the group session took up every vacancy in our body, and we have no room left. My old chess coach calls when we get home about the grief session. I'm doing dishes, cleaning plates. Mommy and I filled with food but never ate from. My hands are soapy when Mommy hands me the phone. Coach Lublin's voice is gentle, soothing. It's the voice he uses when a newbie loses a tournament to a kid half their age. "Yahida, we're all thinking of you." Coach and I worked together for 2 years. He seemed unsurprised when I quit the chess team, as if he'd always known I was not truly interested. He always smiles at me in the hallway and invites me to drop by training sessions, but has never pressured me to rejoin the team. When I hear his voice, my heart squeezes a wrung-out sponge, and I wonder what would happen to the phone if I drop it into the filled sink. Will it float on suds, or will it be weighed down to the bottom? How does the water learn to readjust around the new objects? Could we nest the phone in rice to revive it into ringing again? Mommy looks up sharply from the table and gives me her look. "Thank you, Coach," I said. "'Tis kind remarks. Who knew death must be so damn polite?" Our apartments are plastic-covered leather sofas, windows with frilly curtains. My mother decorates with wide sashes, colored coat to match the season. There's a small courtyard out back, where we held summer barbecues for the family and neighbors. Unlike most of my family's friends, Papi and Ma owned our apartment in the co-op, bought it when they found out Mommy was pregnant with a girl. Papi said his queen needed a castle, and Morningside Heights would provide. More and more I sit on the fire escape just to get a chance to breathe. Our house these days is a choked-up throat. I cannot exhale myself out the front door. This is no castle. It's an altar to a man, a National Geographic shrine. The house is a living sadness, and as Mommy walks its halls at night, even the floorboards weep. It's Saturday after 3 p.m. I lie in bed. The doorbell rings. Maybe Mommy will get it. Footsteps come down the hall, soft padding that doesn't belong to Tio Jorge or Mommy. Soft murmurs outside my door. More than one person came inside. Mommy's quivering voice in another tone more sure. My door pushes open. I keep my eyes closed. If they are intruders, I hope they steal everything, especially the weight on my chest. I hear sneakers thump on the ground, and then a body settles on my bed. "Move over," Dre says. She must have come over with Dr. Johnson. Otherwise she would have ducked through the window. I am right. I hear Dr. Johnson. Measured murmur cut through my mother's choked voice. Dr. Dre put her arms around me, and it's the first time I've let myself be held since Papi died. When Dre grabs a bottle of acetone from on top of my dresser, I'm surprised. If it weren't for me, the only decoration on her nails would be specks of soil. But it's not her nails she's concerned with. She takes a little ball of cotton and begins removing the polish from mine. Despite having done the same for Mommy's nails yesterday, I only then noticed I'd bitten the color off my own. When both my hands are clean and she's filed the nails down for me, I grab her face. Her eyes are calm. My old soul girlfriend, always watching out for me. We share a breath before I kiss her, before I bite back the hitch of tears. Positive identifications have been made, and Papi's gold-toothed smile was among them. Theo George and his wife, Thea Mabel, show up at 4:05 p.m. My mother's sister, Tia Lydia and my cousin Wilson show up at 4:32. My father's cousins who worked at the billiards show up at 5:12. The family comes with food, with Bibles, with worry sewn into the creases of their forehead. There is no music playing. The men talk quietly in the living room and sip Johnny Walker. When Tia Lydia and Mommy go to her room to pray, Tia Maribel appoints herself the general of logistics, doing the things that Ma has been unable or unwilling to do. She calls a cousin about flowers, a childhood neighbor about casket cost. She calls a church a few blocks away to have his name read at morning mass for a week. She calls a relative in the Dominican Republic. It's quite a long time while someone on the other end speaks. There is a call made to El Diario newspaper about publishing an obituary. My cousins Wilson sit on hold with the airline, trying to see when we can claim what is left. The other women come back from the bedroom. Mommy's eyes are dry and hard. Discussion turns to burial plots and whether or not the remains should be taken to Dominican Republic. My father was the one who always threw the get-togethers, and even in death he brings us all home. Theo George breaks away from the men when he sees me standing in the living room door, swaying on my feet. He leads me to my father's favorite chair, awkwardly pats back my hair. I curl into his hand. Theo George and Thea Mabel do not have children, but they would make great parents. Theo George knows how to listen, even if all he hears is silence. We sit like that a long time, him patting my hair, me breathing in his familiar cologne. I trust he hurts how I hurt. I trust he knows I hurt without me having to say so. Halfway through the discussion of funeral arrangements, I heave up from Bobby's chair, walk to his old record player, grab one of his favorite artists, and cue the music. My uncles go quiet. My aunt shushes someone on the phone. I lean back in the chair and close my eyes. One of Bobby's favorite bachata songs lifts itself into the room. It's about lost love. And although it's a breakup song, the lament to not think, to not cry, to not hurt for another man, the singer feels like it could be speaking to this moment. Before the song is over, Mommy slams her hand on the disc. The music stops mid-tone. It seems fitting, I think, to end right in the middle. She doesn't have to tell me music is inappropriate for mourning. I only needed it for a second to remember a time before this one. Tia Mabel asked Mommy whether Bobby will be buried, as we're seated around the kitchen table, picking out a picture to lament for mourners. I've begun making a list in my head of all the things I don't want to forget about Bobby. If someone asked my biggest fear, it would be that, forgetting his callous hands with the fingertip he chopped off in the Dominican Republic, his gold tooth that blinked in the light, his big laugh that used to make me smile, even if I was mad at him. I tried to find a picture that captured all of these things. Bobby in motion, Bobby in space, Bobby glided. Bobby, the big, hot, boiling sun we all look to for light. I want to forget this whole past year and remember only the good things. Not a single photo captures exactly what I need, and I shove away picture after picture after picture. At Thea's words, something flashes in Mommy's eyes that isn't really sadness. Her hand tightens against her snatched waist. She hugs herself hard. Neither of them look at me when she says, his real family is here. What's left of him will be buried here. I look at my mother, as if seeing her for the first time. She sounds angry. I try to see if she knows what I know, but Tia Mabel makes a sharp sound, and I swing my eyes in her direction. Tia Mabel's looks like a clipboard want to tumble over, but she claps her lips tight and pulls the sentence off the edge. Theo George shakes his head. Yana always wanted to be buried back home, Zola. Mama doesn't even look in his direction. He will not be buried there. I am his wife. My heart feels like it's pounding in my chest. Does she know? Does she know? Do they all know? Theo shakes his head and takes a folder out of his briefcase. His wife you may be, Zola, but you are not his will. He sets a document on the kitchen table. My mother picks up the papers as if they will origami themselves into fangs. Then she laughs. So he planned for this. And Theo shoots a glance at me. The other matter too, Zoila. You agreed. Mommy put the paper down without reading, straightens and smooths them as if fixing a boyfriend's tie. Mommy turns her back to us, stands up by the window. He was ours first, and he will be ours last. But if this is what he wanted, then take him back. But we won't be the ones to see him buried. I want to agree with Mommy, but I can't. The part of me that is my father's daughter, that sat on his lap and laughed, that had her hand patiently guided to his, that girl knows it isn't so simple. If Papi's buried in the Dominican Republic, I want to be there. He died alone and afraid, without family around, without anyone who knew him. He was probably thinking of us. How can we put him in the dirt alone and not even go to say a prayer over his grave? Although she still has her back to me, Mommy straightens. The longer I speak, the more unthinkable the scenario. Mommy can't possibly imagine she and I wouldn't go. Papi wasn't perfect, but he didn't deserve this, and we deserve to say goodbye. Her eyes are watering when she turns to me, but her voice is solid ice. Yahaira, your father was no man's saint. Not even if I dropped dead this morning would I let you touch foot on the sands of that tierra. Get that thought out of your head, grave or no grave. I press my mouth tight to keep my quivering lips to myself, and I look at my mother and smile. Never let anyone see you sweat. And if my mother paid attention at a single one of my matches, she knows when Yahaira Rios smiles just before she makes a move, you better watch the fuck out. Mommy is a good woman. A good woman. Mommy is smart and shows up to school conferences. Mommy's a good woman. A good woman. She works hard and always makes dinner. Mommy's a good woman. A good woman. She never forgets to pick me up from school. Mommy is a good woman. A good woman. She sews my sweaters when I pull a button. Mommy is a good woman. A good woman. Mended the holes I tore in my new jeans. Mommy is a good woman. A good woman. She buys thoughtful presents and kisses loudly. Mommy is a good woman. A good woman. And I know I failed her. Mommy wanted a girl she could raise in her own image, and I came forth. A good girl, but so much of me when I was younger seemed crafted from my father's spit, as if he shone a light on her womb and pressed a fingerprint on my forehead, baptized me his alone. I have words that I have kept secret from Mommy, words a better daughter would have said. I am my father's daughter, a bad daughter to a great woman. The thing I learned about my father is like a smudge on all white dresses. You hope if you don't look at it. If you don't rub your fingers in the spot, then maybe it won't spread. Then maybe it will be unnoticed. But it's always there, a glareful fault. Papi had another wife. I found the marriage certificate. The date on the form was a few months after my parents' own marriage, here in the States. And as if to ensure that anyone who stumbled across this envelope got it right, there was also a small picture included. My father with a beautiful brown woman with long dark hair, both of them in all white, as she carried a bouquet, smiling up into his face, while he stared steadily and seriously at the camera. My father had another wife, and my mother could not have been the type to stay, while her husband strayed year after year after year. This other woman, the reason my father left me, left us, broke trust, ignored the family he left behind. And when he returned last summer, I didn't know how to look him in the face and pretend, so it was easier not to look at him at all. When the only words I owned were full of venom, it seemed better to stop speaking to this man, since the only option was to poison us all. 19 days after. I haven't talked to Acero since he last approached me, but today I'm squeezing the water from my hair. He comes out from behind the trees. Vidalata was chewing on some bones as I left the house and didn't join me on the trip to the water. But still I scanned the tree line, hoping to see him napping in the shade. A small patch of short curly hair sprung up from the neck of Aciero's shirt. I am reminded he might smile boyishly, but he is not a boy. I am glad I am near home, that there are houses beyond the clearing, because in this moment I am a girl a man stares at. I am not a morning girl. I am not a grieving girl. I am not a parentless girl. I am not a girl without means. I am not an aunt's charity case. I am not almost alone. None of these things matter. He approaches, wide mouth smiling. I have my motorbike, he pointed. Want to ride home? He wraps his hand around my wrist. I snatch my arm away. As my cell phone starts ringing, I scramble to grab the phone from my back pocket. Tia's name flashes on the screen. Allo, Tia? I back away from El Cerro. Tia does not say one word, but I hear the tears in her sharp breath. They found him. I just got word that 4 days ago they found what is left of him, and they have decided to bring him home. I murmur to Tia, but no, she cannot hear me. A body means there is no miracle to hope for. Dead is dead is dead. 4 days. I didn't know. You did know, I tell myself. You knew there were no survivors, but somehow this proof sledgehammers my heart. Someone needs to light the candles, to call the funeral home, to contact his friends. Someone needs to make flower arrangements and call a church. And the only someone is me. I put the phone in my back pocket, confronting El Cerro face to face. Whatever you want from me, forget it. I have nothing to give you. It makes me sick that I find out this news here, in this place I love, with a man I am growing to hate. I rush away from him, but not before I hear him say, "But Camino, you owe me more than you think, and hasn't it always been about what I can offer you?" When I get home, Thea has lit candles. Although he was not her brother, I can't imagine what she must feel. I've known my father my whole life. She knew my father all of his. Thea was a healer's apprentice as a child, 7 years old, and in the room when Papi was born. Years later, saw him fall in love with my mother. She was the first person to hold his child. Even when he came to visit this house he paid for and updated, Papi treated Thea like an older sister. So much respect for how she kept the house, for the beliefs she had, the decisions she made regarding my well-being. They were friends, but until this moment I have not thought of what she lost. He was like her brother, besides me, her only family. And on this day that ends all hope, we hold each other close, thinking of a man and all the people that must live on without him. Thea tells me she has heard rumors. She is speaking to me the next morning as we wait news regarding Papi's body. Her hands pluck the feathers off a chicken. She is methodical, her fingers fast along the fluff that she drops in a plastic bag in the kitchen sink. The big machete that is never far from her side catches the light through the window. It glints at me, and I wish I could carry it with me. Thea tells me both Don Mateo and the woman who sells fruit have mentioned seeing El Cerro walking for me after school, or walking from the beach soon after I've left it. She says the saints have whispered caution in her ear. I take a deep breath. I want to tell Thea it's all true, that I'm afraid of the thing El Cerro wants to ask of me. Her voice is stripped of any emotions, but if fingers can be angry, hers must be wrathful. She plucks in hard snatches. I raised you smart, right, girl? This is not a question she actually wants answered. I can tell by how fast she speaks. Thea's anger now sounds like it could be directed at me. That thought puts a staying hand on the words that were going to leap from my lips. I raised you clean and fed, even when your feet were sold, when my own stomach rumbled, right, girl? I grew up for a future different than the one most girls around here are allowed. Choices. Did I not do everything to provide you choices? The feathers bulge in the bag, and I wish I was just as light, but I feel weighed down. Her words turn to stones. Thea thinks I have been inviting El Cerro's attention. Somehow his stalking has turned into something I must have done. The chicken is nearly naked, raw and plucked, dressed in saggy skin, a feast for our hunger, a place to gnash our teeth, since neither one of us can bite at the world. I wish I could tell Thea that El Cerro won't leave me alone. I haven't done anything wrong or encouraged him in any way. He just shows up grinning, waiting. I wish I could tell Thea I don't know what to do, that I'm scared he'll corner me. I wish I could tell Thea, but what would Thea do if she knew? Thea's older, with little money. She is respected in the neighborhood and beloved by the people to whom she offers care, but El Cerro occupies a world of men who care little of healers and even less of girls, who represents little more than dollar signs. Don Mateo is old. Theo George does not know me. There is no one to stop El Cerro anymore. What would El Cerro do to Thea if she tried to stand up to him? I cannot even think the thought. I am from a playground place. Our oceans that we need for fish are cleared so extranjeros can kite surf. Our land, lush and green, is bought and sold to foreign powers so they can build luxury hotels for others to rest their head. The bananas and yucca and sugar cane, farmed and harvested, exported like kids thank God, while kids thank God for every little scrap. The developed world wastes gas, raises carbon emission, and water levels that threaten to disappear us in a single gulp. Even the women, like me, our mothers and tias, our bodies are branded jungle gyms. Men with accents pick us up, as if from a brooch to climb and slide and swing. And him, El Cerro, he has his hand in every pocket. If you are not from an island, you cannot understand what it means to be of water. To learn to curve around the bend, to learn to rise with rain, to learn to quench an outside thirst, while all the while you grow shallow until there is not one drop left for you. I know that is what Dia does not say. Sand and soil and sinew and smiles, all bartered, and who reaps, who eats, not us, not me. Dia doesn't believe girls should wear all black. I was 13 the first time she let me buy a black dress I wanted for my middle school graduation. It is the same black dress I pull out of the closet to wear to the meeting with the priest, and it still fits. I slide on the straps. I pull on black stockings, despite the heat outside. Dia doesn't blink when she sees me. She just turns around so I can button her white blouse. She wears a white head wrap, too. I know the priest will raise a brow, but Dia doesn't care. She's armored in her saints, and they make her brave or reckless, or are they the same? All white like this shows undue devotion to the saints, and our priests don't want to know what's practiced in secret. Dia and I stare at the mirror, the two of us framed in copper. Tears pool in her gaze, and I immediately swipe them when they collect in the wrinkles around her eyes. She doesn't flinch at my hand. She curls into my palm. Dia doesn't believe girls should wear black, but if I wasn't a woman before today, I think I am one now. When I ask Thea if my father's brother Theo George will be coming with Papi's body, she hesitates a long moment and fingers a loose fringe that's fallen free from her head wrap. Bueno, te digo que no sé. I'll tell you that I don't know. But her tense shoulders seem to know more than she's telling me. I look at her sideways, and we walk arm in arm into the church. How are we going to plan for a funeral if we don't know who's coming? Will people be staying with us? How much do we need to cook? 100 other questions puff into dandelion wisp in the air between us, but the other shakes her head and doesn't make a wish on a single one. In the middle of the night, Thea shakes me awake from a dream where I'm wandering New York City, screaming my father's name. At first, I think I must have been screaming out loud, but when my eyes adjust to the dark, I see Thea is carrying her healer's bag. I get dressed quickly in jeans and sandals. Do not bother putting on a bra or brushing my hair. I can tell by the worried way she rifles inside her bag that this is an emergency situation, as if we don't have enough to deal with. When we step outside the house, a young man waits. Shadows darken his face, but as I get closer, I see it's Nelson, Caroline's boyfriend, who made eyes at her since she was 5, and we would all splash each other in the ocean, like we discovered a personal water park. He must have been recruited to fetch us. I do not ask what is wrong. There is only one reason. We walk the uneven streets in the dark. Dia's white clothing, a splash of brightness against the unlit night. Good thing we know this ramshack neighborhood as well as we know the webs between our fingers. She steps in front of the yellow house, and there must be a power outage because inside is pitch black, except for a couple candles burning in the window. Caroline's mama opens the door. Although it is dark, I can see the one-room house is swept and clean and scrubbed cleaner. but still too small of all the people we must fit inside. Maman and Caroline's father, an older man who rarely smiles, and Thea and myself and Nelson, and Caroline's baby. Except for a couple of candles burning in the window. Caroline's maman opened the door. Although it is dark, I can see the one-room house. It's swept clean and scrubbed cleaner, but still too small for all the people we must fit inside. Maman and Caroline's father, an older man who rarely smiles, and Thea and myself and Nelson, and Caroline's baby. Attempting to push itself out. Caroline's family face is red and sweaty. She is spawned on a faded couch, her hands clutching her belly. I towel off Caroline's forehead. Thea asks Caroline's maman's questions in her calm curandera voice. When did the contractions start? When was the last time she went to the clinic? Has her water broken? How long ago? Caroline clutches my hand tightly, and I attempt to circle out her worries with my thumb. If there's anything to be done, Thea will do it. Caroline should be in a hospital, but my mom says the baby is coming too fast, and they panicked thinking of the logistics. It is not an easy thing to do for a Haitian parent to bring their child to a Dominican hospital to give birth. There is already a lot of tension around who here deserves care. I cannot fault Maman for being too afraid. These questions are asked as firmly as the hand she presses on Caroline's belly. As a curandera, Thea is fierce, channeling something beyond herself. I unfold long white sheets and wrap them around cushions to protect the space where Caroline will give birth. I use a flashlight on my phone to get my bearings in the house. Thea pulls her up by her elbow and bears Caroline's weight, then prays and calls protective spirits into the room. I reach into her bag and grab the tea made from thyme. Caroline's father looks stern, but I see his hands trembling as he settles them on the back of a chair. He mumbles under his breath in Creole, and I wonder if he too is praying. Thea settles Caroline more comfortably on the birthing bed I've made. She guides Caroline to breathe, to push, to wait, to set thick towels on the floor. Nelson rushes to help me. His fingers jerk sharply as we straighten the space. Fear clouds the room, a thick fog, but Thea's calm voice is a flame cutting through it. I switch places with Thea, and my arms grow heavy where I sit behind Caroline, holding her. I'm sweating almost as hard as she is. I try to breathe deeply as I hold up my best friend. I try not to think of all the ways I know premature labor can go wrong. Thea's red in the face and her eyes are weary, although you can't tell by her steady movement. One last hard push, Nina. The baby is crowning. Caroline doesn't seem to have any more energy. She is panting hard, her eyes squeezing shut, and I'm worried if there is not the last push. Come now, Caroline, I whispered. You did not carry this baby all these months not to see it into light con fuerza. I wipe the sweaty hair at her forehead, and she weeps into the crook of my arm, but she pushes and pushes and pushes. The small body plops down into Thea's waiting hands, like a wrinkled fruit from a shaken tree. The baby boy is tiny, quiet. Thea is a woman woven of miracles. The reason people who are afraid of her and her magic still call her for the worst emergencies is because Thea is a woman who speaks to the dead, who negotiates with spirits, who loosens their fingers when they clutch around the neck of someone she wants to live. It doesn't always work. I know personally sometimes Thea's too late. Sometimes the request is too great, and Thea's bargaining not enough. Sometimes Thea is only a healer woman with callous hands, a commanding voice, with ointments and teas. This woman who holds a baby not her own says, "Ven, mijo, ven." Page 169. Sometimes Thea is more. She calls forward when I would retreat, and the room holds its breath as if we can gift it to the child. And Caroline weeps, and Thea prays and curses and coaxes a child to breathe, pressing her 2 fingers against his chest, beating his heart for him, oblivious to the slick of his body and blue of his lips, to the collective sob of the room, to the spirits who would greet him on their side of the veil. Dia takes air into her mouth and pushes it into the child's mouth, does this again and again, and her body to his until it seems impossible, this bringing forth of life, when death is so steadily stalking into the room. And the baby inhales a deep gasp, just as the electricity returns to the barrio, and the small house becomes filled, brilliant, bright. I have been so entrenched in death and drowning in funerals that this seems an amazing thing. To see the baby clutch the air, to see the child who should not be here, not only here, but here. Through my own tears, I see all of us crying, and tired Caroline holding the child close to her breast and grips her hand. Thea gives instruction of herb teas to brew, ointments to make, and advice on latching. She'll come back if Caroline needs help swaddling. Maman hugs me to her chest as we're leaving. She says thank you and throws some pesos at me. She says she will wash the sheets and return them. Caroline holds her child. Nelson holds his hat. The old man does not say a word, but tears trail down his cheeks as he walks us to the door. They've made a memorial outside of Papi's billiards. Under the green light, when the bouncer stands, there's a blow-up picture of Papi smiling, holding a glass of what I imagine is whiskey out to the camera. Dre insisted on coming with me, and she is a sure presence behind me. I kneel and touch my hand to the gifts people left in Papi's honor. Flower wreaths, so many flowers, although Papi always said, why pay money for a thing that will die in a week? The knickknacks built a lump the size of a billiard cube inside my throat. A lottery ticket, a bottle of shoe shine polish, a small Dominican flag, a baseball card of Robinson Cano, a little figurine of a man dressed in red and black. In history, we learned the Greeks made sure to die with a coin in their pocket to ensure their spirits could pay for their way to the other side. Remembering this, I gave Papi the only kind of safe passage I have to offer. I kneel on the cold, hard concrete and fish the chess piece from my pocket. Set her, the polished black piece, right by a burning candle, a queen to guard him on his way. Papi's billiards has always been a gathering place, and as I stand outside of it, I remember my last time here. It was after a match. Papi took me to his pool hall to celebrate. He rarely did that. He said billiards wasn't a place for children, especially not his child. But on this night he wanted to show off my trophy to his employees and friends. Surprised me with cake and a glass of Coke he had splashed with a little bit of rum. He pressed a code into the jukebox so that bachata songs blared out for free all night. My father left the country a few weeks later. I stopped playing chess soon after that. I cried on the train ride home, my head against Dre's shoulder as her breath puffed softly into my hair. She knows I hate riding the train alone. It's one of the reasons I think she pressed to come with me tonight. The last time I played chess, I went against a boy named Manny, who I had played against before. He always smiled at me across the table, held my hand a little too long when we shook, and took both his wins and lost gracefully. But this is not a story about Manny. This is a story about winning. About feeling on top of the world, of feeling like a star had risen inside of me, and maybe was shining on my face, or glittering off my trophy last summer. As I stood on the train station platform and prepared to go home, Papi was in DR at the time, so I attended the match alone in the daytime, and the train was packed, and I got on with my back to a man who leans against the train door. And when I felt a squeeze on my leg, I thought it was an accident. And when I felt fingers float up my thighs, I thought I must be mistaken. And when he palmed me under my skirt, open-handed, I dropped my trophy, but did not scream, did not make a scene, did not curse him out. There was no strategy, no alternate plan, no way to win. There was just me, stuck. and felt up on a public train, racing northbound. Heart, breath, sick, lost. Anger has no place on the board. I was impotent in my feeling. Never let them see you sweat. Dripped on my brow. I don't think. I like it. It lasts more than one stop, more than two, more than three. Do you know what I mean? My body was not my body. Could not be mine. He got off at 96th Street. I did not pick up my trophy off the train floor. I did not cry until I got home, until Dre came in through the window and saw me trembling and held me close, and did not ask me anything, but still knew, still must have known, how she ran the bath and folded my skirt into the furthest corner of my closet, and we never spoke of it. I did not cry over it again, but I knew I needed to speak to Buppy. I hoped he'd have some words of wisdom, some response, but when I called, he did not answer. Once I unfroze from what happened on the train, I tried frantically to reach him. I wanted to speak to the most protective man in my life. I wanted him to undo it somehow. I had a match in 2 days, and I wanted to tell Buppy I didn't want to go. I needed a break. I don't know why I felt like I needed his permission. After 3 days with no reply, I opened the cabinet where Buppy put all his business papers in a folder. But the only papers were for the billards here. Nothing with the Dominican area code. Then at the bottom of the cabinet, half hidden by other files covered in dust, was a sealed envelope. I knew I should put it back. I knew it wasn't what I was looking for, but I opened it anyways. After what I found and what happened on the train, I skipped 2 tournaments, ones that had been difficult to qualify for. But on the evening of the 3rd tournament, Buppy called me huffing and puffing. He'd received an email from the tournament commission disqualifying me from any other summer matches. When I answered the phone, Buppy did not ask if everything was okay, did not ask why he read that email but none of my text, replied to none of my phone calls. He did not let me get a word in. He didn't ask why I answered with so much anger, and the truth is, I don't think I would have told about the man and the hand of my skirt and my panties, about the certificate in the file cabinet that made my father a liar. But I'll never know what I would have said, because Buppy did not ask. He only lectured me and told me he was disappointed. After he hung up, I whispered into the phone all the ways that I was disappointed with him. If Buppy wanted my silence, I vowed that day he would get it. When Buppy came home a few weeks before school began back up, he ranted and raved at the mummy that I had grown stubborn. He would walk into your room and yell I needed to grow up. I would simply go into my room or climb through Dre's window to escape having to look my father in the face. 21 days after. It's the last day of school. I walk through the school hallways like an alien has crept into my body. My arms don't work like they used to. I try to raise them to pick up report cards. I try to make them pick up a pencil as I sign myself out. I try to open my locker to remove my books. I try to keep them from trembling, but they only shake lightly at my side, and it's Dre who murmurs and reminds me, I can do this. Keep on breathing, but it feels like the littlest thing is too much work. I guess I keep hoping if I just don't move at all, it'll hurt less. When the memory barges into me, it's been 3 weeks. I don't know how to father anymore. Insurance representatives from the airline come to the house. Theo George and Thea Maybell are already here. Although Theo George practiced law in the Dominican Republic, I still think we should have a lawyer who practices here, but no one listens to me. The airline representatives open a folder and list the initial findings of the National Transportation Safety Board. I make sure to memorize the name of the organization that will investigate what happened. When the reps are done, they look expectantly at us. Theo George grabs the report and walks into the kitchen window, reading it in the light of the setting sun. Mommy looks at me, and I know she wants me to translate. She didn't catch every word. Dinero, I told her softly. Money, an advance payment, to be exact. So many dollars they've knotted around my father's life. Un medio millón, Theo George whispers. No one else says a word. Mommy begins to weep, while drilling a manicured nail into the wooden table, until the sound feels like it's puncturing my ear, and I put my hand over hers. The airline representatives say, grievance? Don't say grieve. Say unprecedented. Don't say crash. Say mechanical failure. Don't say dead. Say pilot error. Don't say dad. Say insurance policy. Don't say puppy. Say advance compensation. Don't say his name. Say accident. Don't say sorry. Say loss. Say sorry. I say you're sorry. Things you can buy with $500,000. A car that looks more like a space creature than a car. A designer platinum purse to carry a small dog. A performance by your favorite music artist for your birthday. A diamond-encrusted bottle of Dominican rum. A mansion, a yacht, 100 acres of land, houses but no homes, all 4 years of college or beautician school and a certificate, 500 flights to the Dominican Republic, a $500,000 store chess sets with their accompanying boxes, 100,000 copies of Shakespeare's The Tempest, apparently a father. Money like this makes me think of a game show, and I wish I could phone a friend or use a lifeline. I wish a smiling host would pat my hand and have me crowdsource the audience for answers on what to guess next. $500,000 is more than my dad ever made, more than Mommy or I can even begin to understand. Theo George says we should still sue the airline. Theo George says it might take years, but we are due a settlement. Theo George says he can handle the finances. Theo George says he can sell the billiards. Theo George says he can open me a trust fund so the money is saved. Theo George says he can hire financial advisors or accountant. Theo George says we need to set money aside for taxes. Theo George says this should help with the funeral expenses. Theo George says we shouldn't tell the rest of the family. Theo George says... Mommy cuts him off. George, you were your brother's consentido, and I appreciate your advice, but the one who needed it was him, and you didn't offer it to him when he was here. I'd look from Mommy to dear George, trying to understand what isn't being said. Did Mommy know about the certificates? Did dear George? Mommy must have realized how harsh she sounded because she flattened her hand on her thighs. What I mean is, Yahaira and I will figure this out on our own. I never heard Mommy be so brisk with dear George. Tia Mabel lowers her eyes. She traces the line of wood on the kitchen table. Dear George seals his lips with an envelope and silently exits the room. There's a community garden around the corner, where I know I'll find Ray. If she's not home or answering the phone, here is her happy place, and since she is mine, I walk there and sit on a bench. I watch her long bent back, the bright purple cap pulled over her short hair, as she hums something. I'm assuming it's blaring through her earpods. Probably Nina Simone. Dre loves Miss Nina. Will play her when she misses her father. Will play her when she's angry. Will play her when she sees videos on social media of another black boy shot, another black girl pulled over, another kid in the Bronx stabbed outside a bodega. Will play her while painting protest signs. Dre plays Nina when two girls hold hands or jumped, or a kid who calls themselves them is made fun of and it goes viral. Dre turns to Nina. Turns up, Mississippi, goddamn. Me? I want to bang my fist. I want to scream. The world's apart from the seams. But Dre? She gets a glint in her eyes, like she's imagining she can repot us, all of us, onto a new planet where we can grow with depth and understanding roots, where we will rise and flourish into tree houses, and Ina will reign, and Ina will breeze, and Ina will be the sun. Shine. I must make a noise at my imaginings because Dre turns around, cocks her head, pulls out her earbuds and places it in my ear, goes right back to packing dirt around a bed of basil. Birds fly high. You know how I feel.